those days, you had to pass the announcer's test before you could actually host a show. So I failed. It took me 6 months to pass the damn announcer's test, and a lot of help from some very good people like Ross Fenton, who was reading the news at that stage. And I aspired to take that job. I wanted that job. I wanted to do that. And so I got there after 6 months and altered my voice and spoke in very rounded tones, learnt to speak properly and read phonetics, do all the things that announcers had to do in those days. We were trained. We were also trained in film production, and that was good because I learnt about the film direction process and film cutting, and became a reporter on the first Turn Around program in Dunedin. We did everything. We went everywhere. Rafting down the rivers, parachuting, gliding, aerobatics, full of adventure, full of fun, and really good experience. I thought, right, well, I want to host this program. So I did. And I got there. I was probably the youngest host in the country at that stage. I was 22 and started on Turn Around. I used to research furiously to make sure that my questions were factually sound and that I wasn't going to be challenged on a point of accuracy if I asked a question. And I was so determined that I used to go into the studio with a pile of research. And I used to pop it visibly under my chair and tell the talent that just in case you were wondering, I have researched my questions, so please rest assured I don't think there's any inaccuracy in the question. That sort of set the scene and the tone. We never had a big row on screen. We had a few off screen, but we never had a row on screen because he accepted that point. And he was the one who said to me, there's no such thing as a stupid question, only stupid answers. And I watched him because he was a master. And in many senses, he knew more about journalism than a hell of a lot of journalists. He wrote prolifically, and he prided himself on his accuracy, his own accuracy. And he wasn't really open to being challenged by people who didn't know their onions. He wasn't tolerated, and was prepared to say so at length, which was always a challenge. And those were the days when Gallery was it. We were more interested in advancing people's understanding of what was going to happen than in ploughing over the history. We plough over the history only insofar as it gave us an insight into why things were happening now, and maybe some insight into what would happen next. But it wasn't sort of one of those reflective programs. It was always about how, tomorrow's headlines tonight. That was the cry. And that wasn't a bad guiding principle because it really put us on our game. And that was important. And I felt that was really what journalism was supposed to be about. We would go out to the airport with our film and ask a passenger to carry it to Auckland for us so it could get on the news. And in one case, I think we had the Deputy Prime Minister of the Cook Islands carrying the film. And if we couldn't do that, and if Wellington Airport was closed, we had to go out to Paraparaumu and hire a plane and fly ourselves. And that could be a bit trying because the weather was tricky, and every now and again you'd strike a pilot like the one who got lost. And he got lost so badly that he had completely lost his bearings. And we came out of the cloud somewhere near Hamilton. Now, I'd decided the best thing to do was to sleep through this trip, so I did. I woke up to hear the pilot asking Derek Fox, who was also in the plane, "Derek, do you think we could put it down there?" And I look out the window and there's nothing but sort of green fields and grey cloud. And all of a sudden, the lights of Hamilton Airport came into view. Well, the pilot then snapped his navigation lights off and took off in a different direction. We got to Auckland. I said, "You're going to have to find another way to get me back, because I'm not going back with that guy, ever." And that was that. We needed a late night news program that was taking people further, that really took advantage of the time. And so I thought the way to do that is for me to go back to Parliament and to actually sit in the gallery and present from the gallery and interview from the gallery. And we did that, and that became an integral part of that program. And that meant that we could be really up to date with things that were happening politically on the night they were happening. And that was a great advantage. And we were flying it. Well, I didn't know sometimes whether people were going to turn up or not turn up. You know, so we were shuffling all the time, worrying about whether someone would get in the studio at the right minute, or we'd be ready for them, or they'd be ready for us, or whatever. But it always was, you know, a great nightly challenge and good fun. One of the things I used to say to the other members of New Zealand On Air is, for God's sake, keep your blue pencils at home. You're not here to rewrite the scripts. We're here to decide whether a project is worth funding. And so let us concentrate on what we're doing. We made many mistakes following that path. I don't think we supervised some of the projects closely enough, but my view was that the people who really should be supervising it were the television broadcasters, who were actually holding the key to the gate over the creative community in gaining funding from New Zealand On Air, and that they should be actually exercising that discipline, and we should be disciplining them. For me, it was an opportunity to get back to what I regarded as fundamentally important. And so it gave me an opportunity to do so, gave me an opportunity to keep myself current politically. So I had people like, I had John Key, Bill English, I had the several leaders of the Labour Party, David Shearer, very good, and Phil Goff, very good. And so it gave me a continuing opportunity to keep current and do something that I enjoyed doing, which was to examine political issues and how they were being managed by the people that we vote to do the job. I was always nervous. I always took the view that if you weren't nervous, you weren't on the ball. You weren't playing at the edge of your game, which is where you have to be. And the second thing I learned was you have to listen closely to the answers. You know, it's not just a matter of asking the question in an intelligible form. It's also a question of, was the question answered? And if it wasn't, what are you going to do about it? So you always were thinking ahead and thinking and balancing whether it was worth pursuing a point or whether you should move on to ensure that you covered all the important topics that were on the table at the time. And so it's a very sharp art, and it takes a lot of thought, quite frankly, to make a good job of it. So there's no such thing as an easy interview, and if there is, get another job. Get another job. My last fight is on now, and it's because I believe that the current broadcasting model is probably on its knees. I think free-to-air television, commercial television, is really going to have a struggle against the new digital media that's coming into the country, the multinational digital media. There's only one system that actually enables you to have instant and universal communication with all New Zealanders, and that's broadcasting. And we've got to remember that. And so I want to see the resources that we have rejigged so that we can have a non-commercial free-to-air television system which Radio New Zealand should be involved with. And I am lobbying like hell. And my last job, the last job I'm going to do, that's my target. I'll get it. To hell with it, I'll get it.